CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. On tonight's episode here, I'm going to do a quicker podcast here before I do a separate Arizona State preview here with Mark from Stomp the Bus podcast, the Arizona State podcast for the College Huddle Network. But here I am, Calvin Glen Alexander from the CGA Tour podcast, talking about the Oklahoma State loss yesterday against Baylor. A couple things I want to note here. Oklahoma State, record-wise against Baylor, overall, it's 23-20 now. Baylor has the most current win, but each team has a winning streak against each other of 9 wins straight at one point. Oklahoma State's was from 96 until 04, and Baylor's is before 1942, and going back. So with that being said here, I just want to get off the chest here because Oklahoma State historically has always been better than Baylor. I remember watching Oklahoma State play Baylor growing up here, and since the Les Miles eras and Stillwaters and so on that I can remember. And it was always a fun time playing Baylor, especially fun when we beat Robert Griffin III, especially fun when we're just decimating them on, and they have college game days show up and it's a night game in Stillwater and they just, can't do anything against us. So yesterday's game was definitely a shock, but not necessarily something I didn't see coming. It was a shock that we could not keep it going in tight games. Mike Gundy, the one thing I would say about him and his tenure at Oklahoma State is that he's a really, really good head coach in close games. He somehow sweats those out, wins those. And maybe he used up all of his magical power in that Arkansas game this year because the other close games, man, they just really are a bummer. Talk about BYU 2 weeks ago. Talk about Baylor, which I'm going to consider a close game here because in the fourth quarter it was still close. They won by 10 and Baylor covered the spread, but that's still a close game here at the end of the day. And it is a really tough thing here to be an Oklahoma State fan today and say, yeah, I think our defense is horrible, just horrible. One of the other podcasts I do is the Big 12 Huddle weekly, and I'm watching Big 12 games around the country every single week now and really trying to follow them, see who's good, see who's bad. And my point being is that we've got Arizona State for homecoming this weekend. Doesn't look great. After that, we got to go to TCU. Not feeling too optimistic about that one either. Oh, and then, we come back for senior day at home. Texas Tech. Still not feeling great. And the last game of the season is in Colorado, in Boulder, Friday night, day after Thanksgiving. Not feeling great about that one either. Didn't out the season. So with all that being said, what do I feel like is some optimism, some hope, some inspiration for Oklahoma State this year, and what can I look forward to? Well, I can look forward to Brennan Presley graduating. Ollie Gordon definitely leaving at this point. I don't see why he would come back. Maybe he thinks the next year with Rangel under center would be much better. He can prove his draft stock, yada, yada. I'll give that a little bit of hope, but I'm giving it 5% maximum on a good day. And this next week in Oklahoma, it's supposed to be not the greatest weather. So there's going to be dark clouds hanging over my head here on Ollie Gordon optimism of him coming back to Stillwater next season. Then when I look defensively, Colin Oliver, I would love to see him play more. Same kind of deal with Trace Ford. My dad brought it up yesterday when I saw him. Trace Ford is still playing football, and he's playing for OU. He's starting for their defense. But he's going to fit in the same idea here of Colin Oliver of what could have been. Could have been an incredible player for Oklahoma State just if they could have stayed healthy. If Trace Ford stays healthy at Oklahoma State, I think he is a draft pick. And I think he leaves much before he even transfers to OU for 2 years in a row. And if Colin Oliver stays healthy, I think he probably gets drafted this year. Now, am I saying top 2 rounds? No, but I do think he gets drafted. I think he gets drafted 5th round or higher, which to me means you stay on the NFL roster for more than 1 season. After that, I'm not sure that's guaranteed necessarily anymore, but who knows? Then when I'm talking about some other teams in the Big 12 of how do we stack up? How do we compare? It's just not good. It's not great. Last week, coming into this Baylor game, we were 0-4 in the Big 12. The only Big 12 team without a conference win. Still rings true because we lost to Baylor. And I'm not going to say we're going to go winless in the Big 12. That is way too bleak of an outlook for me in this Oklahoma State football team because we do have a 7th-year quarterback. We do have a 20-year head coach. We do have a 6-year starter in Brendan Presley. But man, the Baylor offense ran all over us. They average 120 yards rushing per game. That's not good. We doubled that against BYU, for example. And they had 120 yards in the first half. So what can we do to stop the run? What can we do to man up and be much better against the run? Why couldn't we have just let Sawyer Robertson here just throw it all over the field against us and see what happened? Because honestly, they had 2 wide receivers who did moss us in the end zone. The commentator, he must have gone to BYU. I mean, I don't know how people get around this, but I am not able to watch an Oklahoma State football game right now, nor have I really been able to my whole entire life, I will say, where I just take the announcer bias out of it and I don't hear the announcer in the back of my head going, man, isn't that guy? Did he go to the other school? Does he hate Oklahoma State? Did we not accept him into our journalism program? What happened? What's vendetta do they have against us? But he just sounded so pumped up for every single touchdown Baylor had. And the ones we had, he seemed excited about. But Brendan Presley took a negative 15-yard play into a touchdown. It seemed like it was a great day for Oklahoma State. But when Baylor's wide receivers jump up and catch it over our defenders who are still not looking at the ball. Anyways, I'll talk about instead this team again, I guess, because that's where I'm at. I'm picking apart the announcers 6 minutes into this podcast episode here and really trying to figure out what the deal is because there's got to be something else. There's got to be something going on that can explain this Oklahoma State season. And at the end of the day, I'm really drawing a lot of blanks. Yeah, we can lose another starter on defense. We can lose Nick Martin. Okay. We can lose Cameron Epps. But was that really a name that was a household name around the country? And Nick Martin, we lost in the K-State game after really just getting decimated against them. They killed us. It wasn't close. And Gary Rangel did provide some offensive spark against BYU. There is some hope there. Maybe next year he'll be great. But, man, it's tough to see because this year was supposed to be the year. This year I came in as an Oklahoma State fan who was there in 2017 when Central Michigan somehow wins it against us, and that was going to be the year. That is definitely the year that Gundy says we won 11 games when the record really shows 10. So there's just so many different things that I'm like, man, that could have been it. But this was supposed to be it. This was not 2021. This was not like, well, maybe they'll stand a chance and get all the way there. No, this was returning 20 starters on both sides of the football. This was returning the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator. The only guy who was new to the team was a guy whose last name is Snyder, who K-State fans know too well. And he was coaching our special teams. And it was not, of course, Bill Snyder. But we go to K-State, we came back, and I don't think we're still the football team. That's all together. Maybe Mike Gundy's voice is becoming stale. Maybe the players can't relate to him. Maybe the NIL stuff is way too much. Maybe the words before the season started of, hey, stop talking about the NIL. Call your agent. Tell them it's after the season. But there's all these maybes. I don't have a pinpoint reason to say as an Oklahoma State fan, oh, man, the season went bad and this is why. I can't sit here and go, yeah, we lost Cam Rising as our starting quarterback and he never looked like he was doing that great when he was here and that's it. Can't be a Utah fan. I don't have that reason. I also cannot be an Arizona fan and go, well, we have McMillan and Fita, and that's it. But so I guess everyone figured this out. I can't say, hey, K-State went to BYU, lost 38-9. Avery Johnson threw 2 turnovers, and the rest of the season's gone so well. And I'm really just drawing a blank here. Am I really excited about other sports in Oklahoma and in Oklahoma State? Of course. I'm a huge Oklahoma State fan. I'm extremely passionate. I'm extremely optimistic 99% of the time. And as I sit here and try to collect my thoughts from yesterday's game against Baylor, I was just so trying to take a nap during that game because it just seemed like we didn't really have a chance. It seemed like Baylor could run all over us whenever they wanted to. And when we were able to stop them here and there, it was like a huge victory. But then they just kept running it. I mean, Carson Cunningham shared over Twitter, and their Pistols Firing podcast is one that I follow religiously, of course, as a fellow Oklahoma State fan. So I'm sure they'll talk about it in their episode this week. But Cunningham tweeted out Kendall Daniels 2 separate plays of him. It just seemed like he had given up. And I gotta agree. It seems bizarre to say that. A college football player who's got money on the line, a guy that got a pro potential, pro ready. Got to think he's got some type of money, NIL wise, draft wise. What is it now? UFL wise. I should definitely know that. It's bizarre to me. Bizarre to me how this team plays right now. Is Brian Nardo like that out of touch with the Oklahoma State defense, where he can't relate to them, can't get in their own heads, can't motivate them up, can't do whatever he needs to do to coach them up to win against teams? Did Gundy just make that bad of a hire overall? Is this guy from Gannon University just really just not good? And Gundy just is like, man, you know what? We hired him on. We thought he'd be the real deal. We were going to pay him this much so he didn't leave so quickly. But it didn't work out. And now it really hasn't worked out? I don't know. Because this is a program historically, Oklahoma State wise, that against Baylor and a lot of other Big 12 teams we're talking 10 conference championships. We're talking an all-time record above 500, 33 bowl games, 641 all-time wins, 55th in the country, a 21-12 bowl record, which is 8th in the country, 21 consistent All-Americans, and the only thing at all Baylor has better than Oklahoma State right now in the Winsipedia chart, which is fascinating to look at, honestly, is they have the amount of draft picks. Baylor has 249 NFL draft picks. Oklahoma State has 172. And I would not care today about those stats. Would not care whatsoever if I didn't also go, well, but we only have 3 more wins all time against them. But yet we have one heck of a better all-time winning percentage than they do. We have one heck of a better bowl record than they do. We have one heck of a better consensus All-Americans. We've got 6 more bowl games than they have. I mean, we've won a considerable amount of games more than they have. We got a national championship, if you believe in 45 or not. I mean, the largest margin of victory we have against Baylor is 60-0. Granted, it was 1914. But then, you know what? I'll look here at Arizona State here. I'll go, hey, you know what? I want to feel a bit better about this program. I want to think a little bit better. This is our 3rd year in a row playing in Arizona State. To this point, we'd hopefully could go 3 straight wins, but I honestly am very skeptical about it at this point because, I mean, as an Oklahoma State fan, tell me why I should be really thinking that we could beat Arizona State this weekend. I'll have Mark on the next episode here, and from the Stop the Butts podcast, the Arizona State one, and I just am really scratching my head here of like how this one could go. It doesn't seem great. I don't see a big deal here where Oklahoma State's just absolutely going to take apart Arizona State. The one thing that they do incredibly well is they run the football. And listen, they just played at Cincinnati. They lost by 10. And you know what? I mean, it's kind of, all right, well, you know what? Maybe we should have been able to beat that one. But I'm struggling. I mean, Arizona State, they had a bye week. They basically just have Scatterboo just run the ball a bunch in their last game against Cincinnati. I don't know if this game will turn out to be decent or not, but Arizona State having a bye week then coming to play us just cannot be good overall. That doesn't help our team. And I'm trying to point this all together, pack it all up. What does all of it mean? Can we actually beat Arizona State? I'm never going to count us out. We're Oklahoma State. We shouldn't have beaten OU every single last time we played them. Maybe 2021 we should have beat him, but they had Caleb Williams, the future Heisman Trophy winner. I'm going to say probably shouldn't have beat him then. And then, okay, in 2023, last bedlam ever, 6-year quarterback here, transfers in, 3rd stringer over at Michigan. Should we have beat OU? Probably not. They're going to have an eventual Heisman Trophy, at least contender in Dylan Gabriel this year. He's going to be at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. If he isn't, I'd be shocked. It'd be some type of bad thing to happen to Oregon. And I'm going to say probably should have won that one. 2014 definitely should not beat OU. But that just means to me, we can always win games that we think we're not going to. We can always stand up and say, hey, you know what? It comes down to just having Gundy behind the headset, and in Gundy we trust. But I'm beginning to not believe in that as much as I used to. And I'm not saying this is last year when it was 2-2 after the loss to Iowa State. The whole world was falling apart. We lost to South Alabama, and then we lost to Iowa State. But previously, we had, we beat Arizona State by a little bit, and then we had beaten Central Arkansas to open up the season. I'm not in that kind of mindset of just the whole sky's falling, the world's totally falling apart. But something has to change offensively. And I know I've got friends, colleagues, coworkers, others that have worked for OSU that have told me several different million things under the sun of what's going on with the program. If it's Gundy, or if it's Dunn, or if it's Nardo, or if it's, heck, Joe Bob Clements, if it's Rob Glass, it could be whatever it is. Just let's figure it out. Like, this is the time for Oklahoma State football to shine. This is the time where Big Dog OU and Dog in Texas that we beat perennially, it seemed, or at least had a really good chance to beating the last decade, they're both gone. The money powerhouses in the Big 12 are gone. The new money powerhouse in the Big 12 could emerge here quickly. I mean, Arizona and Arizona State have way bigger overall, student body populations. So does UCF than Oklahoma State. They have the resources too to really just jump up there real quickly. But this is really a thing in the Big 12 where since 2010, Oklahoma State has been the second best team in the Big 12, just record wise. Now, have we played that many Big 12 championships? No, but it's usually kind of a deal where we had always play OU to end out the season, which just didn't work out well for us. Kind of the winner of that game would go to the Big 12 championship and the loser would sit at home for a while for the past several seasons. And we just Gundy beat OU 4 times. Being Oklahoma State head coach, it was great. Every time was awesome, but it's 4 out of 19. So it was just, it didn't happen all the time. And I want to end out by saying this. I am excited to see what happens this offseason, Oklahoma State wise. And if nothing happens, I'll be very anxious for next season. Because if there is a new quarterback on the roster that transfers in, awesome. If there's not, still okay with that. I'm okay with the running backs if they just stay where they are. Trent Rowland and Rodney Fields and Sessi Valahi. Defensively, I'm really going to have some questions. How do we replace Colin Oliver? How do we replace Nick Martin? But it seems like some other guys are kind of filling the gaps and maybe just a little bit slower than we want them to be. But defensive scheming wise, we're definitely doing something wrong because we're allowing the most amount of yards in the Big 12. Offensive scheming wise, we're definitely doing something wrong because we looked incredible against BYU in spots. But Rangel still threw a pick. He ran the ball for 50 yards, breaks clavicle/collarbone. So I'm not saying that wasn't working that well either. Ollie Gordon is who every single person in the entire world knew this year was going to be the guy for Oklahoma State. And somehow we can't throw the ball because they're all locked in Ollie Gordon. And we can't run the ball because they're shut down the passing game. So we're just not doing that well either. And I really would love to see at quarterback next year, just some more confidence, some more consistency. Because since Spencer Sanders was the quarterback of Oklahoma State, it really dictated on if he was injured or not, if Oklahoma State could win games. And the games that we didn't win, I went, is he injured? And so I'm really just excited to see an Oklahoma State team that I think brings a whole new, deep breath, fresh air environment in. But to me, something has to happen coaching-wise. Something has to happen either just, hey, Gundy told the players to do some soul searching. I would also ask you, sir, can you please let us know as an Oklahoma State fan base, are you in it 100%? Because you seem like you're in it in a lot of the press conferences. The press conference you had on Monday after we beat BYU, that next, not the post-game press conference, but the press conference on that Monday back in Stillwater, seemed like we kind of was a moral victory. The way we were just being, talking about it was not just straightforward shutting down their reporters' questions and, just kind of giving the Belichick answers. But I do kind of expect Belichick answers here Monday. And I do kind of expect the answers for the rest of the season to be like that because I think this offseason is going to be one that unfortunately does have to bring a lot of change because this is the most hopeful I've been for Oklahoma State football season in quite some time. And as the season keeps playing out, this is, I think, the most annoyed I've been about how a season's played out and most disappointed. I mean, I've disappointed myself how I've done things. I've been disappointed in Oklahoma State how they've done things. I think the disappointment is warranted. That's what I want to get at. It's a disappointing season. I think the disappointment is warranted. And I think change can be made, and good change can be made for this program. So there's hope no matter what at the end of the tunnel. I'm never going to be the guy who says there's not hope, because it's college football. Anything can happen. This is fun. It's fun talking about sports. It's fun having guys on to preview certain games. I do this as a hobby. It's a lot of fun. But stuff's got to change. And I'd be excited and very interested to hear what the whole Oklahoma State fan base thinks needs to change the most here. Is it offensive coordinator, or is it defensive coordinator? Or is it both? And I don't honestly want to give you the answer of both. I just want to hear one or the other. Which would you most rather change? Offensive or defensive coordinator? Because offensive coordinator, I think we can understand when the offense is playing well. We know what that looks like really well. Defense coordinator wise, I don't think everyone in the entire world, excluding myself, is able to decipher it as easily as like, oh, we just allowed that guy to run the ball all over us. Versus, oh, the pass was not completed because the guy wasn't open and the quarterback made a bad read. I don't think those two things are easy to discern. So I'm excited, at least for the rest of the season, to see what happens. Alan Bowman should go out as one of the best Oklahoma State quarterbacks to play in spots, but he won't, because he honestly came back this season. Last year, if he had left after last year, he would have gone down as a very celebrated Oklahoma State quarterback in the Big 12 championship and then beating the crap out of Texas A&M and all their 5-star players. But instead, it's going to go down like this. And man, it's a tough look. But you know what? With that said, I hope we win the next 4 in a row. I hope we beat Arizona State at home on homecoming. Night game in Stillwater. Darkest sky in the country. Neon black. And then I also hope that we just go on, beat TCU, beat Tech at home senior day, beat Colorado. None of those teams coming into the season were ones that I was worried about whatsoever. And we still have our offense, who is all healthy. Knock on wood. Dalton Cooper, offensive lineman, injured, banged up for sure. But I think we still have a really good shot at winning this whole thing. So, catch you guys in the next one here that I'll upload real shortly with Mark Thompson when I get him on to record a podcast here, previewing the Oklahoma State versus Arizona State matchup and the ways Oklahoma State can beat Arizona State. But until then, go Pokes. And please follow, subscribe, like, comment, share the podcast here. Just kind of help support Oklahoma State fandom as a whole. And of course, to keep these podcast videos and this audio rolling as well. Thanks so much. Catch you guys again soon.